All right. Well, we'll go ahead and jump in today. I'm extremely excited to be joined by Danial Dewar, a senior product manager here at IMPLAN. Today, we're going to be talking about AI and IMPLAN. So, where we are today and where we'll be in the very near future. So, quick agenda for today. We're going to talk first about our approach to AI. For those of you that read the blog entry I had a few months ago, I think it's very much in the same vein of that. We'll go through the features that are available to all of our customers today in the application. Then we'll jump into what's coming next. So, most notably, our MCP server, which is a way to connect IMPLAN with other LLMs. And then also some data library extensions that'll allow you to ask natural language questions of data library. And then we'll go through a Q&A. If you can go to the next slide, please. Just from a logistical perspective, if you have any questions, there should be a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Please use that, and we will answer questions throughout the presentation as well as at the end. If by chance we miss any questions, we will follow up shortly after the webinar via email. And then just one last piece of housekeeping before we jump in and I hand it over to Danial. If you want to keep track of new features, here's the 3 things you can do. So sign up for our webinars. If you received this invite, you're probably already on the list. If you didn't receive this and it was forwarded to you by somebody else or you saw it on social media, please sign up on our site. We also send a monthly newsletter that has tips and tricks, new features, webinar recordings, and some case studies included. So I would encourage you to sign up for that. And then finally, reach out. So if you're a current customer, please always feel free to contact your customer success manager or reach out via support@implan.com. If you are not yet a customer, always feel free to reach out at sales@implan.com or feel free to schedule a meeting on the chatbot on our website. So with that, I'll hand it over to Danial.
Thank you so much. So we'll zoom out for a second and kind of talk about, why is IMPLAN implementing AI? Lord knows it is just about everywhere that you turn these days. So we should spend a little bit of time talking about the why, I think. It's not the kind of thing that I think any company really looks to throw around kind of recklessly or slap things on, especially when deterministic results are, your big core value prop like they are here at IMPLAN. So the biggest thing that we are looking to do with AI implementations within IMPLAN is save users time. So IMPLAN has some pretty unique challenges for folks, especially folks who are novices with economic impacts or people approaching it for the first time. We're seeing applications where AI and certain agentic features can sort of start to ease those burdens. So the big one is project creation and data setup. So getting large scale events and groups set up along with data mapping can be pretty tough for folks that have information about their business or economic situation, but not necessarily in a format that IMPLAN likes. And the other one being reporting on those analysis outcomes. So writing narratives around those data points is a particular strength for large language models in particular. And it's a need that we hear from users all the time. How do I talk about what's happening in this analysis? So that's an area that we feel pretty strongly about. And then accessing reference data. There have been a whole host of technological advances recently in terms of AI's ability to kind of read and parse structured data, a lot like what's in our data library today. And so, we recognize that data library has a learning curve, both on the interface itself, but then also, the economic language involved, and plain text, agent-assisted search has a pretty good ability to lower that barrier to entry and ultimately simplify the process. So we think we have a host of areas where AI can improve the IMPLAN experience, but obviously health always has to outweigh hype. We're pretty conservative in terms of how we apply this stuff, and 100% opt-in only when we do it, which is a great segue into our AI pillars. So a quick minute on security and safety as far as AI at IMPLAN goes. Like I've said, we're really not interested in slapping this on everything. Our first priority and kind of the value on which we trade is quality deterministic results, and nothing's really changing there as far as IMPLAN's concerned. When we do integrate an AI-driven feature, it's because we feel it represents a real opportunity to save users time or ultimately reduce complexity, of which economic impact analysis has plenty. So There's a lot of different areas where I think ultimately this is going to provide a lift for folks. In addition to results quality, data security is a non-negotiable for us, and obviously for many of our customers. We achieve this by using AI models that are only privately hosted, and we do not train on your analyses, nor do the models. So everything is walled and segmented in such a way that we are not contributing to any public model activity. We know not every org can accommodate AI use, and so all AI features within IMPLAN are opt-in and clearly identified. We're not out to surprise anybody. User choice and autonomy are very much key principles for us, and we look to maintain that, as we start to layer in AI features and as this technology evolves. As we rapidly sort of see the emergence of AI, all across the board, we'll continuously be building in-platform feedback mechanisms, and you'll see one live in our AI summary demo. And reaching out to users to hear about their experiences. So, don't be shy. We have a survey coming out in about a month that'll probably feature a couple of feedback areas for these features in particular. So we really would love to hear what you think. We, welcome all feedback, good, bad, and indifferent. So happy to hear from you and looking forward to it. A quick minute on what we have out today. So AI summary is I would say, like abstract generation feature that we've implemented here in IMPLAN. And we'll be showing you rather than telling you here in just a second. But the quick overview is that AI summary lets you take high-level results from your analysis and create a custom abstract tailored to the audience of your choosing. So the gist is really about framing your results in the context that you need quickly and easily. This is accessible via the AI summary tab from the results page of any analysis, as long as you have AI features enabled. A couple of notes on how this functions under the hood. So this is strictly based on the key economic indicators and tax results from your analysis. So it's a little bit more of a kind of cursory high-level synopsis. And ultimately, it is gated to that data specifically because we really want to basically maintain an almost 0% hallucination rate. We really need to make sure that the data is, really still deterministically driven, and ultimately any of the AI framing or polish on top of that is, like we said, just a wrapper really on top of that deterministic result. So, and basically you can take these core pieces of data and then shift, tone, verbosity, focus, whatever you're into. So you can say I'd like something a little more in depth, something a little bit more shallow, and really start to get a quick blurb that lets you communicate what's going on to the people that need to hear about it. So I'm going to hop out of the deck for just a second. Before we get to the MCP server and show you what this looks like live in a real analysis. So this is a quick construction and operations guide project that I did, just modeling a brewery. And it has my construction event, my operations event. You can see that these are years that follow each other, 27 and then 26. And we have all of the economic and tax data here present within this, as well as just quick blurbs about what the data represents. Let's say that I am pitching a municipality. I really would like to just focus on communicating the tax results for this analysis. So I'll say rewrite this to focus on tax outcome. And we mentioned the feedback mechanisms just a second ago. So I can tell IMPLAN directly whether or not this meets my needs. I can give positive feedback, negative feedback, and I can also export this report, either this version or whatever comes back from the model once I have started making my tweaks, directly to DocX. And look at that. There we go. So it has rewritten this blurb to focus pretty succinctly on the tax revenue impact, prioritizing those outcomes, and still keeps all the rest of the data in there. But ultimately, it is trying to tailor the report to my audience. And I can basically take that and grab it right here to DocX via this export button right here. That is AI summary in a nutshell. We will keep on cruising so we can get to your questions at the end if anybody's got anything. And I know Justin's manning the Q&A as well. So we'll hop back into this deck. Our coming next segment has a fair number of features in it, but the MCP itself is big enough and important enough that I think it kind of gets its own slide here. So we will spend a quick minute talking about what an MCP server is before we get into kind of the MCP within the context of IMPLAN. for those of you who've been AI users for a little bit, you may have interacted with MCPs for other products or platforms you use. You may be more familiar with how they work. But if you're not, an MCP server is essentially a structured knowledge base. So this is a code repository, basically, that tells AI agents how to interface with an API, sometimes with a little bit extra sprinkled on top. Ours has our entire support knowledge base, as well as all of our API documentation baked into it. So it can facilitate some questions you'd normally turn to the support side for, and often it'll leverage that information to help make decisions about project creation and data structure when you are asking it to create projects for you. With these instructions and background, the MCP basically becomes an API user in your stead for whatever platform that MCP represents. Whatever the API can do, you can now do via plain text. You basically just present your ask in plain text, and your AI platform will use the MCP to begin unpacking that request and interfacing with the platform to execute your ask. Getting into the IMPLAN context a little bit, this opens doors for folks on both ends of an analysis. So for users who have tons of data like business purchases, things like that, but not necessarily data that's ready for IMPLAN, especially folks who have large volumes of data as opposed to smaller one-off events and things like that. AI platforms can use the MCP to help you map what you know about your business to data that IMPLAN can actually use to quantify your impacts, which is a pretty big deal. For folks that have projects already in motion but need help generating reporting, the AI platform can pull up IMPLAN projects and create one-pagers, tabular outputs, whatever your AI platform can handle, the MCP can facilitate. So, it almost sort of starts to become that assistant in a box, so to speak. But we'll touch on the IMPLAN ins and outs here in a second more. Last, MCP servers typically use what's called pass-through authentication. So you'll log into the MCP via your AI platform just as securely as you normally would, and then you're off to the races. So the MCP itself doesn't hold your credentials. All the authentication still sits within IMPLAN proper, which keeps things secure, and that's really the name of the game, because we're not interested in violating anyone's data security. Moving on to kind of some of the more in-depth IMPLAN focused outcomes that an MCP can facilitate. Like we were saying, this really starts to become that IMPLAN assistant in a box, helping you map your data into analyses, like we mentioned, generating one-pagers, tabular outputs, and ultimately it really can just create and run projects for you based on a plain text ask. Can kind of help you refine some of the model structure on the front end of that as well, and you'll see kind of what that interaction looks like here in just a sec. With all of these asks, the AI platform is using IMPLAN's API directly. So all the results are still deterministic. Again, we are basically putting icing on the cake, so to speak. The damage of hallucination in a very data-oriented space like this can often outweigh the value of customized reporting. So when we are developing features like this, that data integrity is top of mind for us. Let's take a quick look at what this experience actually looks like in real time. So I have my Claude desktop window up here, and this is Claude code for anybody who's not familiar. And when I'm talking about AI platforms in a general context, that might be Copilot, that might be ChatGPT. For us, as far as the development for this MCP server has gone, it's been Claude. And we'll talk about kind of what support looks like moving forward for some of those other options here in a little bit. But you can see what I've dropped in here. My initial ask was, hey, I'd like to use the IMPLAN MCP server to create an economic impact analysis. I've got a large-scale distribution center getting added to the NC 13th Congressional District. This is my primary, problem framing here. I've got an annual revenue for that distribution center of $24 million and an employment figure of 23 people or 350 people. That's all I've presented it with. You can watch Claude kind of leverage the MCP to start picking that apart, looking for a data set. So it went ahead and pulled a data year 2024 data set. It starts pulling our 528 aggregation scheme and starts trying to basically down select through to the region to find the NC 13th Congressional District there. And it kind of frames all this out for you live, and you can kind of go back and forth with it if you need to tweak things and start to unpack that. But you can imagine for somebody who hasn't used IMPLAN, this sort of serves it up to you on a silver platter a little bit. You can watch the project creation, event creation, group creation. It starts to kind of break down how IMPLAN is actually building that project on a physical basis. It's run the project for me and lets me know when it's done, and then kicks out a quick look at the economic indicators and tax results for that project. Gives you a quick couple blurbs on key takeaways. And then I asked it, hey, I'd love this in a one-pager docx format, just something that I can kick out to other constituents and people who are interested in hearing about the outcomes of this project. And voila. So this is what it generated for me. Nicely formatted, data all lines up, pretty quick abstract one sheet. This is a, I would say, like pretty short form example of what the MCP can do. We've also tested this looking at things like, map a 1,000-row spreadsheet of business purchases into IMPLAN across a 51 state MRIO. That's kind of an example of the kind of power that an MCP server can have for us. And those analyses are, a little bit long running for what we'd want to do in the webinar, but ultimately, kind of an example of how impactful that kind of stuff can be. Moving ahead, we will take a look at data library as well. So let's get back into the deck. So conversational analytics. Analyses and results are not the only areas of the platform that are getting some love these days. We are also aiming to make data library a little bit more explorable with conversational analytics. So this feature is pretty much exactly like its name. You get to talk to data library, ask your questions, and get answers. Looker has long been the underpinning for what we're serving up in data library, and recently Google's Gemini has begun to natively support plain text querying for that service. And so when we saw that coming out, we said, hey, we'd really like to get that in users' hands as soon as we can for feedback and testing. So to start off with, conversational analytics is only going to support industry data. We're going to open up more data areas over time. But you can kind of think about this as an alternative to the industry compare dashboard if you were looking to browse things. As always, we're looking to show, not to tell you. So back out of the deck for just a second. When I go to data library, you can see that I'm in our beta environment here, but we're going to have another tab up here called Conversational Analytics. And that is going to serve up the kind of launch pad for me here. You can see my recent conversations here on the left, and then the agents, quote unquote, that I have available to me. These are going to be data areas that are browsable to the user. And I have an industry agent. So this is going to be able to pick apart my industry data for me. And I can come in here and I can say, what are the industries by output in Carolina? And it's going to go back and it's going to think about that for, I don't know, we'll call it 10 to 15 seconds. And if it wants to hang, then I have other tabs because I've already thought about that. In the meantime, you can kind of imagine what a more complex filter-oriented UX, this would require. When for folks that have used data library historically, these are the kinds of things that sort of take a little bit of that learning curve and require you to have used it for a little while, maybe asked somebody and said, okay, well, I've figured out all the, little nooks and crannies that it takes to actually get to the data that I'm looking for. With conversational analytics, you can just ask for these things and Gemini will parse data library for you and come back with a tabular output as well as a little text-based blurb here kind of breaking down what the results of your query were. If you ask for it, it also will produce actual graphical outputs. So I can swap these around a little bit. And you can modify these results in plain text format just like you would for any other AI platform. So you can say, well, I'd like this in a line chart. I'd like this in a bar chart, that kind of thing. and be able to tweak what you get back as you like, which is really the name of the game. So let's talk a little bit about what else is coming up. So the features that we have cruised through today are somewhat just the beginning for us. The rest of the near-term future on the AI front looks like expanding the data available to AI summary, like we were talking about, beyond just the economic indicators and tax data. We may do that via an MCP facilitated feature. We may do that just by increasing the raw data that we start with for AI summaries sort of generation report. We will also be looking at ways to leverage the MCP's plain text interface within IMPLAN itself. So the project creation and report generation that you saw when we took a look at the MCP that I had going via the Claude desktop app, we are going to look at how we can bake that into the IMPLAN platform itself. So trying to bring some of those functionalities native and kind of more into the platform. And lastly, we'll be looking to facilitate use of our MCP server with platforms beyond Claude. So, Claude is where we're starting with this, but feel free to let us know in the comments in the Q&A what AI platforms you'd like to see supported first with that kind of feature. Wrapping up, putting some time frames to what we've seen today. Obviously, AI Summary is live now in app for users with the AI features enabled. And again, if you haven't, you can go to your profile page to turn that on. And you can expect functionality updates to that feature over the next 2 quarters. Again, we're trying to make that more robust, more worthwhile, and ultimately able to generate the kind of abstracts that are going to bring value for you. Conversational analytics for Data Library will be making its debut in our 26.4 release, so that's coming out closer to the end of August, with industry data being that first available area for exploration. And we'll be getting feedback on that feature post-launch, so we're going to use that to drive additional expansion areas. Stay tuned and feel free to reach out if you have areas where you're going, hey, I would love to be able to browse X area with conversational analytics. And lastly, the MCP will also be coming available in 26.4 as well, and we are super excited to get that out and then ultimately get that to more than one AI provider platform as well. Tossing it over to Justin to put a bow on this thing. You are muted.
There we go. Sorry. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me now. So I appreciate that. So one is if you have any questions, please enter them in the Q&A, as noted in the earlier slide. But other ways to put this to work. So if you're new to IMPLAN, check out the AI summary, which, as Daniel mentioned, is in app. You will need to go into your profile and just toggle it on. There's no additional charge. And then you can use it from there on out. If you'd like a demo of the conversational analytics or the MCP server, please reach out to our customer success team or our sales team, and we'd be happy to demonstrate those to you using your use case and data and so on. As always, let us know how this is. So I think when we let out both the webinar as well as the blog entry I read a few months ago, we talked about not wanting to AI wash everything, right? So if you are familiar with IMPLAN, we certainly take a lot of pride in the underlying data and the methodology and the model. We didn't want to wash it with an AI tag. We wanted to really focus on developing features that would really help our customers. So please let us know what you think. Please let us know what AI platforms you're using. That'll certainly help inform our roadmap. And with that, I think we've got a couple questions we'll hit. So somebody asked, talk a little bit about IMPLAN's decision to start with Claude versus other apps. So this one's fairly easy. So the Claude, I assume this is going with the MCP server topic in general. So Claude right now, the support in Claude Desktop for MCP is just cleaner than the other LLMs. So we will, as we roll this out and get closer to rolling it out, test it with ChatGPT and Gemini. They do support MCP, but it's not quite as deeply integrated as it is with the Claude Desktop app. So it was kind of more of an environment question than a truly strategic decision we made. And then can you share the private model host provider the IMPLAN's using? Different providers have different security protocols. So you want to take this one, Daniel? You know a lot more
Yeah,
about the
that's
architecture.
Anthropic as well. That's Sonnet 4.6.
Okay, and that's up in AWS Bedrock. So as Daniel mentioned, that is a private instance. As you all know, we have our security policies, processes, and controls posted on our website at security.implan.com. So anything we wanted to incorporate from an AI integrated into the application perspective itself had to adhere to those policies, processes, and controls. Those are not just promises to our customers, but also promises to our internal team as well. I think those are the only two questions we had outstanding. Any last questions before we wrap up for today? All right. Well, as always, if anyone has any questions after the presentation, please reach out to your customer success manager, your salesperson, or myself directly. Always happy to answer any questions. And thank you all for taking time out to join today.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.